This is DC, powered by people and ideas, where the community comes together, voices are heard, and decisions are shaped.
So I want to start by saying, welcome home.
Connecting you to what matters and to each other.
How you doing? You know, what's the tea?
I'm Lorenzo Hall, and this is the DC Beat. And good to see you. Welcome to the DC Beat. I'm Lorenzo Hall. Right now, a lot of our neighbors are talking about Ward 8 Council member Trayon White. His federal bribery trial gets underway in less than 3 weeks in mid-September, more than 2 years after he was arrested. Prosecutors say White agreed to accept more than $150,000 in cash payments, all in exchange for using his position as a D.C. council member to pressure government employees at the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services to extend several D.C. contracts. The feds say those contracts were valued at more than $5 million, and the companies provided violence intervention services in D.C. Now, I should point out that White has denied any wrongdoing and says he was set up by the FBI. But, you know, let's do a beat check right now and talk about the impact of this trial on violence interruption programs. After White's arrest 2 years ago, D.C. restructured these services and took a harder look at what's working and what's not. One man who's been working to make sure those programs stay in place and fully funded is Marcus Ellis, Deputy Director of Cities United, which is focused on making our neighborhoods safer. Marcus is at the table with me tonight. Marcus, good to finally have you at the table.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Doing some important work. So for the folks who are watching right now, I mean, I got to tell them that, you know, we've had this relationship for quite a while, talking about violence interruption services, and you're a huge proponent of those services, and you're still in that space right now. Obviously, this is a big talker. A lot of people either feel like this is what's needed. Other people are like, okay, is it really a good use of tax dollars? Yeah. So first off, why violence interruption services? Why are these different organizations and services so critical?
Yeah, so since we last talked, I've taken on a position in a national organization by the name of Cities United. And at Cities United, we believe that every city in our country, every jurisdiction should have what we call a comprehensive public safety ecosystem. Community violence intervention is a huge part of that. And so, you know, from everything we've learned and we've seen in the District of Columbia, we went to 20 different jurisdictions through something we call a Lead the Way tour that has really emphasized not just the need in DC, but the lessons learned across the country and the importance of this work and how it prevents incidents before it takes place.
So lessons across the country, what did that look like?
Yeah, and so this looked like taking deep dives into cities like Memphis and West Palm Beach and, you know, really talking to them and understanding the work that they're doing and helping them to build out this ecosystem that we're speaking about. And so oftentimes when we talk about community violence intervention, it's a singular approach. But the reality is, just like any other system, there are things that need to be built around it in order for it to be successful. And that's a lot of what we're teaching, learning, and coaching as we move through these different jurisdictions.
Yeah, and a lot of these conversations about what intervention, interruption, what that looks like, because it's really tough to gauge, you know, the effectiveness of something when it doesn't happen.
Yep.
So what does that look like? How are these organizations and these groups actually preventing crime?
Yeah, so there's this unique skill set that really starts with a few things: relationships, connection to community, and lived experience. And so you're talking about individuals that have the benefit of having a relationship that can talk someone away from using a gun. That's what community gun violence is. People in community using a gun now. We can have a conversation about what happens afterward when they're arrested and harm has already been caused. Or we can talk about these unique individuals who have a skill set that allows me to say, hey, look, Lorenzo, that's not a good move. We want to think that through. Are there other alternatives to the approach that you're taking? And not just that, can we change the trajectory of your life by providing the right resources and helping you to understand this is not the only way?
Yeah. A conversation I remember us having a while ago is, you know, you were talking about the approach and what the public can see and can't see. And in a lot of these cases, it seems like it's really sensitive work. Let's say there's some neighborhood beef. I can't go out publicly and say, you know, I just talked to Marcus today. This is what he's going through. He told me about these people. That work has to sort of remain secret to, I guess, build that trust.
Yeah, these are all facts, and that's the reason why it takes, you know, folks like myself in conversations like this to really be clear that While the District of Columbia and other jurisdictions across the United States have seen tremendous drops in gun violence, while police are a part of the public safety ecosystem, they're often at the mic and they're the ones talking about the decreases. To your point, community violence intervention, they're doing this very silently. They're doing it behind closed doors, and it's not something that's often discussed. But trust and believe that these superheroes who are going through these neighborhoods without a gun or without a badge, they are a part of that equation and a part of the reason we're seeing these decreases.
What do you say to people who they live in some neighborhoods where violence and crime might be high, and they simply just want police there? They may even want the National Guard there, the feds. They just clean it up. What do you say to those folks?
I say to them, one, and I say to us, the practitioners of community violence intervention, is that at a certain point you have to be fair to that conversation and realize that they might not understand that there's another way. And so what I would ask them to do is take the proper time to be educated. Let us explain to you what this work is, because you know what you know. Policing has been around for 200 plus years, right? And community violence intervention is new to some folks, but not new to our field. And so we got to take the proper time to educate folks, let them know what this is, and help them to understand the science behind it. This is data proven. Like, this isn't something we're just saying, hey, go out in the neighborhood and tell somebody to put a gun down. No, we got neighborhoods right up the street from Washington, D.C., Baltimore namely, where we know they're seeing these decreases. They're sticking to their plan. They have a comprehensive plan, and they're working all elements of it.
All right, so we know that your organization, Cities United, is awarding, up to $50,000 in grants to a number of organizations. A lot of them I'm familiar with, like Guns Down Friday, you have the Trigger Project. How did you select these groups, and why is that money so critical, and how will it be used?
Yeah, so these groups, we selected each other. We believe in building out comprehensive public safety ecosystems, and that means bringing everybody to the table. The CBOs doing the hard work, the business community, the faith-based organizations, and we're asking them during a very critical time about a year ago, listen, there's a federal takeover taking place in our city. This is going to happen right in the neighborhoods where you all are doing some really great work. What is going to be our strategy? How are we going to ensure that the work is protected, but also the residents, your clients, are protected as well? These organizations stepped up. They stepped up and they did some really, really hard work, some brave work, heartfelt work. And this is Cities United's way of saying, listen, not only do we appreciate your leadership, we also understand that school is about to start, and your organizations are going through a time where most are experiencing cuts in funding. How can we give you something just to help you to continue your mission?
Looking at these organizations, Don't Get Taken, Peace Walks DC, the Academy DC, Cure the Streets, growing up as well. Anything stand out in particular in terms of the work that they've done over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, for sure. I really want to, when we talk about Don't Get Taken, this was a calling card by Mr. Tony Lewis Jr., who partnered with me on this particular leadership initiative. And so during that time, we were really trying to figure out, what do people need to know? And people needed to know a few things. I definitely want to acknowledge the Trigger Project and all the other organizations mentioned, who said that, listen, in order for our folks to be safe, they need to understand their rights. And so we worked with the Community Violence Legal Network, who helped us to explain that you have rights during these troubling times when you might be approached, you might be asked certain questions. Here's what you should be saying. Here's what your rights are. But also, we need a healing in that space, Lorenzo. You're looking out your window and you're seeing military forces. You're hearing gunshots already. How do we make sure that people are safe, healthy, and hopeful enough to even be able to deal with that on a daily basis? And so that was a part of the hard work that these organizations did, who already had the relationship in community.
So it sounds like your work had to change as well with this federal law enforcement surge.
Oh, absolutely. And again, that's why we called it Protect Community Violence Intervention, because they're not just protecting the practice of the work, but the clients. We knew that a lot of our clients are from the returning citizen population. And so we were very clear on this, though, Lorenzo, I must say. We weren't blaming the National Guard. They were deployed here. They were given a directive, and they signed up to protect the United States. But what we did want to be clear about is that this was not a way. Over-policing has never worked systematically in communities of color to prevent gun violence. And so those organizations that we're awarding this money to, they were doing what we know to be best practice. We needed to support them.
Marcus Ellis, my man. Good to see you as
I
always.
appreciate you,
the conversation.
Thank
Likewise.
you. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so our neighbors are sounding off about the first week of school for students in D.C. and efforts to keep them and our community safe. We know the D.C. government is putting more programs in place this fall to support young people and their families, similar to what we saw over the summer. But will it be enough to prevent those so-called teen takeovers? At the table right now is Dr. Kevin Beckford, co-founder of the Hustlers Guild, an organization focused on workforce development with young people in sports, entertainment, and tech. They've also partnered with the Commanders, Wizards, Google, and Facebook. Dr. Beckford, good to have you at the table.
Well, great to be at the table. Thank you for the invitation.
So as we were saying, the kids are back in school now.
They're back in school.
You know, a lot of parents are sort of relieved at this point. They're like, you know, they're taken care of. They're in the school building for X amount of time during the day. But this conversation about keeping them safe, that still needs to be had. We still have to talk about that. And a lot of people are wondering how to engage these young folks in the fall, the winter months, and the spring while they're in school. We had the director of DPR on the show last week, and she talked about how they stepped up over the summer to be that safe space for students. But based on your work, what needs to happen now? How do we engage these young folks to keep them out of harm's way?
That's a great question. In short, investment. We must invest in our young people. It is paramount. Young people, they are interested in three things, according to extant research and data. They want spaces where they can feel safe and belong. They also want mentorship, whether that be an adult or peers. And then third, they want opportunities to learn and grow, whether that be and outside of learning in a school setting. So whether that be workforce development programming or paid opportunities to be out in community, i.e. jobs, those are the things that young people want. And so it's paramount for us as a community to invest in those things and ensure that young people have those things throughout the school year, not just the summer, for example, right? So we have programs like the Summer Youth Employment Program. 15,000 young people in DC went through that program this summer.
Just this summer?
This summer, yes, 700 organizations supported, right? But that program ends in the summer, right? That's just one way, and it perhaps should continue throughout the year, right? And so, you know, young people want investment. They want community. They want to learn and grow outside of the classroom. And many of them want to get paid, right? And so,
of course,
who doesn't? And so I think just investing in those type of opportunities is paramount.
All right, so you mentioned safe space, and I find that as adults, we have an idea of what a safe space looks like, but for kids, that's totally different. Do we have an understanding of what that looks like? So if there's an organization or someone watching and they're thinking, okay, this is what my child needs, this is where they should be, what does that safe space, as we keep saying, look like through a teen's eyes or a young child's eyes?
That's a great question as well. And so in short, young people want spaces where they can gather and spaces where they can feel a sense of belonging. So these spaces, often called third spaces, whether they be libraries or parks, public spaces, they are shutting down access for young people in real time. Right, and so restrictions to going to the mall, you know, young people, which you and I, we did, you know, coming up, right? That is a thing of the past for young people, right? Where there are parental, you know, there are restrictions when they're being told you must go with a parent, for example, right? Or parks are closing down, right? Or, you know.
So it sounds like they also want to be away from the parents?
Look,
adults,
surprisingly, right?
I mean, that's what when we went to the mall when we were younger, it's kind of like, oh, I feel independent. You want to grow on your own to a certain degree.
They want to be in community, and they want to be in community with each other, right? And so we see that through signaling on social media, where young people are putting out messages on TikTok, for example, to say, hey, let's gather in Navy Yard at 3 p.m. Right? That has translated, that the term takeover has translated into something negative, but that's existed for years. Literally young people posturing, gesturing like, hey, like let's join in community and let's just be together. And so that's nothing new. There's research, there's data that shows that this is how kids are, this is how people are. They want community and they want spaces where they can just be. They also want spaces where they can intentionally grow. Right, and so the extent to which we are able to create workforce development programs for them, right, or programs where they can get paid, or programs where they can learn a trade, or engage in sports. That's what they want. They want spaces to gather, and they want spaces to grow. Ultimately, they want to find community and feel community.
How do you engage with a young person? I'm thinking of this generation now compared to ours. They have social media. You look at them, and it's like, They're just lost in the
Right.
phone half the time. So how do you bring them back to reality and rope them in and say, okay, I'm going to help you with X. This is what you need. This is how I can help guide you.
That's the interesting point, right? Because young people actually want to put their phones down.
Wait, say what?
They want to
Says
put
who?
their phones down. This is what they tell
Okay.
the young folk that come through my nonprofit, the Hustlers Guild. This is what they tell us all the time. They want to go bowling. They want to go to the park. They want a safe space outside of their home to talk with friends and to feel community. The reality is, unfortunately, those spaces are limiting access to them, either through policy or through cost. Imagine growing up in this fantastic city that is Washington, D.C., and you see, your favorite influencer talking about this place to go or that place to go or this thing to do, but not necessarily having access to do those things, right? And so the message that I'm hoping to carry through my nonprofit, the Hustlers Guild, in partnership with the Center for Just Journalism, is to encourage adults to and their advocates to invest, right, in creating those spaces and creating those opportunities for them, to removing those barriers to exist and to be and to thrive and to grow.
What about the folks who are watching right now? Let's say they're not with a city agency, but just at home, and they want to help in some sort of way. What can the average person do?
There is so much they can do. You don't necessarily need a nonprofit affiliation, right, to give back to young people. Auntie, uncle that's watching, you can continue being auntie and uncle. The young people on your block, be sure to check in. Ask them how they're doing. There are so many community centers. There's schools. In every neighborhood. You can directly reach out and ask, hey, what can I do, given my positionality, to be of support to the young people in this community as they continue to thrive. And you would be surprised that schools are always looking for resources. They're always looking for volunteers. They're always looking for people, to offer young people, if they're high school aged, jobs or apprenticeships or internship programs, right? And so that's just the way to start for the average individual who's not necessarily a part of a nonprofit, who's just starting. There's so much that they can do.
It sounds like we need to also let them know that this is their city too,
This is
and
their
they have
city.
some agency, and they're the future.
They are the future. They're the now.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So we just have to support them now and let them know that this is their moment.
Exactly. We have to support them now, and we also have to, school year just started, right? But we are also transitioning administrations very soon, and it's paramount for us as Washingtonians, as citizens, to think about the policies, that we support and we promote during this transition, right? We have to be asking, are we investing in community organizations, and are we invested in community violence interventionist programs that really keep communities safe and keep them thriving, right? Are we supporting policies like curfew, for example, which studies show do not work and in fact have adverse effects in some cases, right? And so we have to there's not only a responsibility for us to perhaps individually engage young people, right? But there's also an opportunity for us to endorse policy that really will situate young people to thrive.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Beffert.
All right,
Enjoyed
brother.
this convo.
Thank
Appreciate you and the work that you're
Likewise.
doing as well.
Thank you, brother.
All right, so it's almost time to vote again. A lot of our neighbors are also sounding off about the upcoming general election. So the D.C. Board of Elections executive director was questioned on whether the district is ready for the general election in November. As we all know, we used ranked choice voting for the very first time during the primary election in June. Some people loved it. I know I heard from some of you who didn't like it so much, but we know voter turnout was around 32%. And for the D.C. Board of Elections, they say ranked choice voting, those kinds of numbers, was a success. We do know that one thing D.C. leaders are looking to change are those long lines at some of the polling locations.
I think there were one or two locations where it was close to 9 o'clock and people were still voting. So how are you going to handle those situations?
We absolutely look at locations where we have had lines, so that is something we look at, but we also just look at the volume. There's some vote centers that are more popular across the city, and so we know going into an election cycle, we need to adequately staff and have voting equipment at those locations.
All right, you heard it right there. So mail-in ballots for the general election will go out next month at the end, September 30th. Early in-person voting starts October 26th, and Election Day is November 3rd. All right, it is time now for my favorite segment here on the DC Beat. It's called We the People of DC, a chance to get to know some of our neighbors, everyday people doing incredible work in our community. At the table with me this time is Jay Coleman. He does a lot. I don't know where it ends. He's a painter, he's a muralist, sculptor, and a tattoo artist. You have definitely seen Jay's work around town. Jay, it's really good to have you at the table.
Man, I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely love your work. Such a big fan.
Thank you.
And it's so funny how it happened because I see your work all over town. I'll see a mural, I'll see a sculpture. I'm like, man, that is really cool. The most recent one being the Loveful Hands.
Oh,
at
wow.
Eastern Market,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, all done by the same person.
Just keep low profile, brother. Just do the work.
Yeah, low profile is right. So let's back up for a minute. How did this all come about? I mean, you are incredibly talented. Were you, two when you started drawing, when you got into art?
I've always painted, I've always drawn. I went to art school. I did go to art school, but that wasn't really what pushed me in the direction that I'm going. Because everybody was an abstract artist. So everybody wanted you to do, put a dot on the wall and talk about it for an hour. That just wasn't my thing. I wanted to do portraiture, realism, the figure, things that people can recognize based on what my community recognizes in art.
Interesting.
Our community wants to see something. They want to be able to recognize, oh, that's a face, that's a hand, that's a foot. And when you haven't been educated in art, you feel detached from it. So when you see something that you can recognize, a child, a face, a person, you can immediately recognize yourself in that artwork. So that's why I kind of moved towards figurative art and that type of thing, and public art specifically.
Yeah, I'm looking at what you did outside of Malcolm X.
Yeah, that's my baby, my new baby.
That is so, it looks good. This is
brother.
great.
Thank
So
you.
the initial question I have is, how long did something like that take?
Normally, when you get commissioned to do a bronze, it can take a year. Loveful Hands took about 6 years because it was sitting at the foundry for so long. That was a whole other thing. But it can take a year, especially when you're doing a deep dive into the history, to the background. It's more than just the aesthetic of what you see. There's there's research. But for this particular project, it was a quick turnaround. I've always been a Malcolm fan, a Garvey fan. Culturally, it was just a dream come true to be able to do Malcolm. I'm like, wow. And as an artist, this was my first dude in a suit. So like, if you want to do monuments and things like that, I had to have someone recognizable, show people that I could do something that was realistic and recognizable. I've seen some sculptures that have been coming out lately, and they're like, that doesn't look like Tina Turner. That doesn't look like D. Wade or whoever.
That?
So, and quietly, I think there are only a handful of full-size sculptures of Malcolm anywhere, especially in this country. I think Nebraska State House, I think the Shabazz Center in New York has one. There's one in Ghana. So I was like, the pressure's on. You represent your whole race when you do this.
It would have been so embarrassing if that did not look like it.
Or if it looked like Denzel or somebody, right? So
who's that?
I worked hard on that. I used some different methods in order to cut down the time. Normally, we use a process that's the lost wax process. We used a different process that same amount of money, shorter time frame. So it was a crapshoot because I didn't know, I'd never done this before. And I'm like, this cannot fail. Sometimes they pour the bronze and it fails or something goes wrong. And I was just like, man, we can't have any goofs. And it was perfect. Loran Bronze in PA did the work. They also did the stuff for the World War II Memorial. So it was just all the ancestors came together and brought that about, because it was one of these. We praying and fingers crossed, toes crossed, and it came through. So, it still hasn't hit me yet. It's
still fresh, yeah.
It's super fresh. I mean, we tried to buff some of the dust off, and it was so hot, the wax coating on the piece, you couldn't even touch it. I was like, I'll come back when it's cooler and do it. But
what do you want people to take away from this work when they see a lot of your work around town?
Well, it's not so much about me. I think the work should speak for itself with any artist. As I tell people, everybody knows the Statue of Liberty. How many people know who sculpted it? So when you're dealing with public art, now murals, okay, I sign it, you know who did it. Rarely do people look around a sculpture to see who signed it, to see whose name, unless there's a plaque or something. So I think the takeaway, one, is for our youth to dig deep into our own history. I think we're dealing in historical times when, if it didn't happen on social media this morning or yesterday, it's old news. And that allows other entities to dupe our youth in a way, if you don't know what has already been done. Perfect example is hip hop. You hear young people say, "Oh, that's a so-and-so song." No,
and it's like, no,
that was actually the Temptations, long ago. That's a sample of the song. So I think through public art gives me an opportunity to put something out there and let the young people question. And it's not just the young people. There are adults that don't know. I did a mural, well, I'm gonna leave that alone. But people have to ask questions. I did a mural called The Three Kings of Anacostia, in Anacostia, and it's got Martin Luther King on one side, Malcolm X on the other, and a young Marion Barry in the middle. But so many people don't know that story of how he got here, that people haven't seen an image of him when he was young. So a guy was walking by, that ain't Barry young, that don't even look like him young. What are you talking about? I was like, have you ever seen the young picture of Marion Barry? Do you know that these two men were instrumental in some of his shaping and all that? So I was like, I'm not gonna get into a scuffle with the brother, but do your homework. And the goal is for public art, if it's not just about the aesthetic, if it's something historical, push our youngest back to reading and doing their homework. So a lot of the sculptures that I have put, at least in front of schools, 2 of them, there's books. So when the computers are down, when the phones are uncharged, you can still pick up a book and read. And that's where the discrepancy is in a lot of our education right now, nationally. I'm not even gonna talk about DC, but nationally, we got work to do, man.
A lot of it,
And the youngest gotta read. So that's my little part. And you know what I'm saying?
The little part, but certainly a big impact. I'm a big fan. Thank you for the message today. Thank you for the work that you're doing as well.
Appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate it. Can't wait to see the next project.
Man, me too.
Do we know what it is yet?
Putting out some proposals.
Okay.
And there's some things in the works, so we'll see. You'll know.
Will I?
You'll know.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, so now you know the man behind all this good work in DC. There you go. All right, so let's end this show on a high note, shall we? If you're looking for a good meal for a deal, you're in luck. It's DC Summer Restaurant Week, so we know dozens of restaurants are giving discounts for 3-course meals. Book your resi soon because Restaurant Week ends on Sunday, August 30th. For the full list, just visit ramw.org/restaurantweek. One more time, it's ramw.org/restaurantweek to find out if your favorite restaurant is there on the list. Also, it is National Dog Day. If you're looking for a forever friend, Brandywine Valley SPCA is waiving adoption fees for animals at all locations. So this deal is happening from August 28th through August 30th. The adoption includes spaying, you have neutering, vaccinations, flea treatments, and a free starter bag for your new pet. And let me tell you, typically, all of that would add up to hundreds of dollars. If you're interested, there are 2 SPCA locations in DC. Those locations are in Southwest and Northeast. My little dog lady came from the Brandywine Valley SPCA. She's a Best dog. All right, so that does it for the DC Beat this week, where you know everybody has a seat at this table in our community. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time. Truly the greatest gift. I'll see you right back here next Wednesday.